Beyond the Stage with Jimmy K. Whitney Tai is a New York City-born singer and songwriter, an architectural designer, a creative director, and a performer with symphonic and cinematic vision. She has found the dynamic central point between Annie Lennox's soulful immortality and Kate Bush's lyrical art pop, and she receives high praise from critics and fans alike. This year she headlined the NAMM Show in Anaheim, which is the world's largest industry trade show. It's a real pleasure to welcome Whitney Tai.
Hello there. Hi, Jim.
How are things?
Thank you. Things are good. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to speak with you.
You're very welcome. Very happy to have you. A lot of stuff going on in your life right now, but let's kind of go back to how everything started for you, because you've done a few things before you went into the music business, right?
Yes.
So just tell us how it all really kind of got started.
Well, my career started in Manhattan. I was studying on the Upper East Side in New York. I worked at a school called NYSID, where I specialized in interior architecture and fine arts. So that was kind of where my creativity kind of birthed itself. I was, very influenced by a lot of people in my life at the time who were pursuing a similar career path. And I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do at that time. Everybody was like, oh, I'm going into this and I'm doing that. And I was like, I have all this like creative energy and skill, and I wanted to find a way to, I guess, just expand my creative understanding and my way of expression, because there's just there's so much out there that I'm passionate about, and the arts is one of them. So I ended up studying there, and through that experience I ended up meeting people that kind of led me into my music career. I've worked for a few companies throughout New York, Connecticut, and Westchester County, doing architectural design for commercial businesses and exterior designs for retail stores. So I worked in that field for a really long time, and I wasn't happy. I felt I liked the work, but I think that at the end of the day, I just didn't feel fulfillment, and I knew that music was always going to be. Yeah, it's a different kind.
Different kind of creativity, right?
Yeah, it just uses a different part of the brain, and it also requires a different process. And I also I was at a point where, after working for like 10 years in this field, I wanted to be the one who had the control over like the kind of creative work I was doing. And so that meant just kind of a complete breakaway from a system, or working in a system that kind of confines the limits of what I can do. And so I ended up going into music full time, and also starting my own design, consultation business, getting the clients I wanted to work with. So that was like the beginning of kind of taking my authority back and being my own boss.
Sure. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. So you're still doing that a little bit as well now? Yeah,
concurrently. It's, I'm trying to balance the life of being an artist musician with still being a creative, because they go hand in hand, surprisingly now. I mean, it helps me making my content and communicating my music in not just an audio way, but in a visual way for my listeners. And it's nice, and I get to be a part of the entire process, because a lot of the times musicians will hand off their creative process to someone else who may be very talented, but doesn't know what they want or their vision. And now, because my team that I work with now, like, we all kind of have the same ideas and intentions for what the intended result is going to be to represent the music. So it's been
when I first listened to your songs, it was really abundantly clear to me that you were a woman with a very, very strong vision. Right?
Wow.
And that certainly comes through, right? To me, it does. So where do you think this drive and this focus really comes from?
I've always been like this. I mean, since I was old enough to make things, I've been making things. Whether it's poetry, writing, I've written. Writing is a huge part of my life. I don't talk about it enough. People know that I'm a writer and that I'm a poet, but I feel like it's become such a integral part of my identity that I don't even see it as separate of me anymore. So a lot of the stuff that's spawned all this creativity was writing and acting. I used to love practicing acting when I was younger, and for, making expressions, trying to figure out how to communicate a phrase or one of the lines I've written and turning it into some kind of dialogue. And so I've spent a long time, trying to figure out the nuances of language and expression and music and how all of that ties in together. And I loved drawing and, collaging and making visual media pieces for just even for myself, because it was just something I needed to make. I don't know. We all have this urge to do something in our lives. And for me, it was just creation of any type.
Yeah, and when you are creative, that's obviously what gives you the buzz, right?
Yeah. Or I don't know if it's I don't even know if it's like giving the buzz, but I just feel like when I'm doing it, I feel the most me or the most normal. But when I'm not doing it, I feel kind of empty,
Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. And I think that's where when you're working at the design in the stores, the emptiness was there because there's creativity here, but I'd really like to do this.
Yeah.
But the paying clients don't get it.
Yeah, it's true. You're sure fulfilling their needs.
Right. So I'm sure that happened a few times, right?
Yeah.
And now it's all on you.
That's also why I think they say musicians are a selfish group. And it's in a way, because it's we're serving this need to say something important in our lives, but we're also providing happiness and, a source of currency and peace for others. So with design, it was the only thing that you could get out of that, I felt was just I'm at the top of the company. I'm at this, I'm rising up, because at the end of the day, by the time you finish designing something, you're already working on another project and you don't even get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So it's it's a passing, fleeting thing that has no meaning other than you pulling your hair out for it. So it's
and you did something cool once, and how many people really do appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even in today's world, especially now with the virus where people are so cooped up, I really think that they can't wait to go out and see shows again. I mean, I really think that once things start to open up again, I think shows are going to be very, very well attended.
I do too. I don't know how long that's going to be, and it's kind of frightening because, with all the numbers spiking and things going around for a second course again, it seems scary to wonder when that is going to be normal again.
Mm. Yeah, it's tough, right? Because I think the biggest problem there is because nobody really knows anything.
No.
And we've been fed a whole bunch of malarkey.
It's true.
And who's right and who's wrong, and nobody knows. So you just kind of we're all winging it to a certain extent. So I think when it comes down to it, using some common sense and, if you see certain situations and they don't look good to you, it's then don't participate.
Yeah. I was reading a tweet yesterday from somebody. They were like, "Oh, I took all the necessary precautions. I wore my mask. I wore my gloves. I washed my hands. I disinfected all my groceries. I barely left my house. I still got COVID." I'm like, this is insane. What we really are just not. We can't protect ourselves from what's going on. It's just going to keep doing what it wants to do, apparently.
Yeah, we just got to get to the point where there is an antiviral there, and just like any other disease, and then things can go back to normal. And until then, it's going to be tough. Like in Canada, they canceled most everything until 2021. So
life is on hold.
That just makes it real easy. So I remember our July the 4th is July the 1st, Canada Day. And I remember this is a couple of months ago, some politician came up there won't be any Canada Day celebrations this year.
Yeah.
And I just cracked up. To me, it was funny because it's a big deal. Everybody, it's just July the 4th, everybody's out. I don't think doing that virtually is going to go over too well.
No. And I think a lot of people are struggling too with just the quantity of how many people have passed away. I think that's the numbers are just unfathomable, and I think that nobody is really prepared to deal with just what is going on. It's outside of the realm of, I think, our capacity to understand. So
yeah, it's not good, right? And I think it's the reason why it's so tough on people is because you just don't know what to do to protect yourself. You feel like helpless, like a child.
Yeah,
right?
You have no control.
No control, But on the positive end of things, what I really love seeing is how many artists are getting into doing stuff online.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think it's very healthy for them, for the artists themselves, and it's very healthy for the public because they get to see something, right?
Also, I'm sure artists are making a lot more money live streaming than they were making at their actual shows because people from the comfort of their home, they can hit the play button and then they can donate, and then they have this they have the freedom to just support the artist, whereas when they couldn't do that before because they were separated by countries or states, and so now you have worldwide support of an artist versus just domestic or kind of support.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I wonder how much of that is going to stay
I don't
afterwards.
know. Yeah,
because it certainly does make it a lot easier, and through the internet you can reach a lot more people, which is also not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think you can ever take away that feel of a live show.
No.
How the kick drum hits you in the gut and all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big live guy, right? So like I like live shows, and I like being there. I like the feeling. The roar of a crowd is just something that's...
there's nothing like it. It's a unique experience, and it's beautiful every time. Every concert I've ever been to, it's like every time you leave there with like a new found inspiration just from the energy of the room and the synergy between the fans and the performer. So I agree with you.
Absolutely, and I worked at like a lot of big festivals, and to me, like one of the highlights when you're working on an event like this for like 6-12 months, and it finally shows up, and then you're there for 3 weeks setting it all up and all that type of stuff. And to me, the two highlights always were that the first time that the sound system gets fired up and something's played on it, like really loud, just to check everything out. And then when the first decent act gets the first huge applause break, right? Mm-hmm. Those are like, because just that feeling, the energy that comes off the stage translates onto the crowd and then is being fired back tenfold is just absolutely amazing. So,
it's magic. It's really magic.
You cannot replace that.
No. Yeah, online you don't have the applause, you don't have the energy of the bodies in the room, so you have to find this new way to almost kind of body language communicate through a medium of some sort, because it's
not the same.
It's not the same. That's all we've got right now.
That's all we have. It's not the same. Hey, it's going to be interesting to see when sports starts up with no people in the stands.
Right.
That's going to be some weird too,
It's going to definitely be weird.
So I don't know, and I know that all the sports guys they can't wait to get out there, get on the ice or get on the field, whatever it is, to do their thing. They're itching to go, but I think they're going to be like, wow, the first time they're going to walk off, and it's going to be like, well, that was kind of strange.
Yeah, it's just going to feel like a glorified practice session.
Right. Oh, we won. Ooh. So, speaking of all this live stuff, obviously you're not doing anything now, but is live a good chunk of what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, we perform live, a couple times a month, and we try to organize as many shows as we can. This is pre-corona, but it's definitely a big part of what we do, because my recorded experience and my live experience, they have a slightly different feeling, and
I can imagine. Yes,
it's always interesting to see the way the audience responds to our music in different settings. Even, a lot of my music is very highly emotional, and I tend to perform that way just because that's just my own personal way of performing. I kind of get really into character, and I go there, emotionally, and a lot of my fans can feel that, and they see that, and it's at that energy alone. I miss that very much, being able to have those moments with my listeners. So, I'm hoping that starts in the near future, not too near, because I don't want to. I don't really know what's going on out there right now, but venues venues just keep pushing off dates because they themselves don't even know what's going on. There's another venue we were supposed to play, and they're just like, yeah, we don't know. We gotta keep taking precautions and things like that. So,
yeah, it's a very, very strange and tough thing. I was talking with one of the major agents in the U.S. A couple of weeks ago. And he said, obviously we lost like all of our shows, and now we're starting to have some come back up, and we're actually we've got some shows going this week and next week and the weeks after that. But he said it's not anywhere near what it used to be, but it's still nice to see that some of it is coming back.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It's tough.
we will get there. We will all get there. And, at least, the great thing for you is you've got like a new album that just dropped. And so you get to fill the time with showing your new masterpiece off, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been nice. Actually once, I think it was right before Corona, kind of just when they set the lockdowns and everything, I was in the process of, setting up the release and getting everything ready to go. And then like 2 weeks later, all the bad news started coming in about globally what was going on, and they were shutting everything down. And I was like, oh my God, I've scheduled this release, and it's going to come out at a time when people are already stressed out and sick over everything that's going on. And I just felt this immense amount of guilt, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I sat back and thought about it for a little while, and I talked with some close friends of mine, and I just came to this idea that I was like, you know what, people need something. They need love right now. They need something that's going to keep them, giving them hope. And I just tried to let that guilt go and say, well, maybe it's meant to come out now. Maybe the people will need this to feel less lonely, less confused, and that's what music does. It's a healing method for most. It brings people together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so it's tough being an artist during these times because you're conflicted by the soul of who you are and then the product of what you make, and that's two different things. So,
for sure. Let's go back a little bit. So you're still in New York, and that's really one of the centers of the universe as far as the industry is concerned.
Oh no, I'm in LA now.
Oh, so how did the move to LA come all about?
Originally what was going on? This is going back a little bit. I was in New York most of my life, and then I ended up living in New Jersey for a while because my job relocated at that time, and I was driving so many hours a day, and I was like, I can't drive this many hours a day. I have no time to do music when I get home, and there was just nothing. So I ended up biting the bullet and moving to the other side of the bridge. And it was interesting. I wouldn't say I was crazy about living where I was, but it was just more convenient. And then I just got really sick of my job at some point. The company was folding and things were going wrong there. So I was like, I'm going to get out of this before it's really, really bad. And I ended up just picking up my stuff and moving to Portland for a few months because I had a friend who lived out there, and he was like, yeah, you'll love it here. Just come and detox, and it'll be a fun break. And I said, all right, well, I've got some time before I head to LA because I'm moving in with a couple of friends out there. So I just spent some time in Portland, just kind of writing some music and starting the process of the album. And then I ended up landing here, but this was always my intended location. I really wanted to live in LA and just start my production and writing company here with my producer. So, yeah.
Well, that's Tim Jansen's, right?
Yes, it is.
So, obviously, you guys have a very, very close working relationship, but how did you end up meeting him?
We actually met on the internet, in 2014, at the end of 2014, one of my songs was entered into a contest to be produced by, one of the contestants, and Tim won the contest, and he ended up being the one who produced my song "To Be Loved," which was my first single that came out. And then a little time after that, I discovered that Tim was also Sun Freaks, the dance producer, and he's had a couple of hits here in the States, and I grew up listening and jamming out to his music most of my life. So it was kind of surreal that one of my favorite dance producers ended up being my partner, my co-writer and producer. So it was a strange cosmic encounter.
Usually the best ones, that's how they happen, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just a chance encounter, and then, check this out. Yeah. It's great. So you've continued working with him. So he's your writing partner for a lot of the new songs as well, is he? Yeah,
we do everything together. Since 2014, we've dropped a few singles. We dropped my first album, Metamorphosis, together. Then we did a couple of singles after that, and now Apogee. And he's the founder of my project. He's the one who's kind of helped me find my sound and direct me towards figuring out who I want to be as an artist. Because for me, I'm a singer-songwriter. So for me, I write all kinds of music, and I have no prejudice on genre or anything. I'll write a metal song, I'll write a pop song, I'll write this or that. But Tim and I kind of founded the Whitney Tai, that brand, that persona, and it's a big part of who I am, and it's hard to hone that person when you're someone who's influenced by so many things.
Right.
So he's helped me kind of craft this voice, that has now become my main thing. So yeah, he's a big part of who I am as a person, as well as as much as a writer and a producer. So.
Does he play in the band as well?
He does. He plays keys. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of figured he was a keyboard player.
Yeah. What gave that away?
Well, because he does there's some really cool keyboard work on your album. And you know what? Let's how about we listen to a track?
I'd love that.
Yeah. There's lots of really good stuff to choose from. But the very last track on the album is pretty special, isn't it? Incantation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So it's actually the encapsulation of the album, which is probably why I think it's kind of like this epic experience, because Apogee was meant to be about this place of acceptance and release and renewal. And Incantation it's this character who's, chanting to the universe, to the Mother Earth, and saying, I am okay with being a mess. I'm okay with being beautiful. I'm okay with all of it, because this is all part of life and part of living, and I'm at peace now. And so that kind of orchestratic ending is representative of the final release, the final let go, the final peace with self. And so that was the concept behind the writing in that one.
Very cool, and it's a great track. So let's give it a spin here, folks. This is Whitney Tai in the Incantation.
Shining beacon, guiding light, come to warn me through the night. Stay below me, hide your fear, taking shelter, all is clear. Faced with myself again and again, wasting myself again and again, taking myself lost at sea, faced with myself again and again, wasting myself again and again, taking myself again and again, faced with myself again and again. Faced with myself again and again, wasting myself again and again, taking myself again and again, faced with myself again and again.
Incantation by Whitney Tai. Great track.
Thank you so much.
So tell me a little bit about the concept behind Apogee.
I think it's well, first of all, Apogee is a record of my life the last few years, and when I left New York, I was leaving behind this incredibly heavy time in my life. I was, my grandfather was dying. I was his caretaker. And it was just a very stressful time for me. And I was dealing with, losing one of my closest family members, as well as trying to still pursue a music career. And so I was just flailing like back and forth between these two lifestyles of being a responsible, person to the life of someone else, and then also trying to chase my dreams. So when I left there, I was like, all right, well, maybe this is finally a point in my life now as a young adult where I can have something for myself and in his honor, kind of carry on that love and passion and that hard work and whatever I choose to do moving forward. Because I had felt guilty. I felt like I couldn't really enjoy the fruits of what I was doing, because I was, the person I cared a lot about was kind of leaving the world like right before my eyes. So I felt
just always tough.
Yeah. And so I was like, you know what, in his name, and I know he would have wanted this. I know he believed in me more than anyone, and he wanted so badly to see me on stage and perform. And so, I think that's what spawned Apogee. And it was this moment of realizing that I could step outside of Earth, I could levitate, I could float, I could be at peace, and just allow myself to feel all the things that I probably knew I was capable of feeling, because I was overcome with trauma. So it's an album of peace, making peace with yourself and with the world around you.
It's funny. A lot of artists, they always say the best material they've ever written comes from that place.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. I never figured that out, but it certainly seems to work that way.
Well, I think music is energy, and I think that's why that rings true. Everything we do in the world, everything we say, everything we think, or every intention we put out, if you're creating something, whether it's plans for a bridge or, writing a song, I think if the person creating that plan or that outline, it does it with love and care, then I think that the person who ends up using it or becomes part of that manifestation or experience is also going to feel that same love and energy, because I think it just moves through everything we do. So
yeah. How difficult is it though to take all that energy and all those feelings and turn them into music? It's I think lyrically it's probably a little bit easier. Is it not?
I don't know, because for me, I think it's not easy when I can't turn it into something. Like for me, my body's way of making music is by responding to an external environmental thing or an emotional thing and translating that into melody and into lyric. Because for me, my melodies in most of my songs are literally just an ebb and flow of what I feel in response to a moment. So, for instance, Incantation, like, faced with myself again and again. And it's like that melody was almost like this, like letting out your breath, like, you're exasperated. You don't, and so like the melodies I choose are related to an emotional response. And so that's where I try to draw any sort of inspiration when I'm making a melody or of any type, so that it has a direct relationship to the lyrics and the meaning behind the song.
Does the melody always come first, or does it sometimes start with the lyric?
For me, most of the time, the lyrics and the melody come together. Like if I'm writing something, so if I start out with a melody in my mind, the lyrics kind of inform themselves. And every artist, as you heard, in the world has their own phrasing, the way that they lyrically talk. So I think my phrasing or my style of phrasing usually is informed by the way I write my melodies. And but there have been occasions where I've written a melody first and have come back to it and added lyrics. It's just, for me, I try to do them, even if it's a rough mock-up, I still try to do them together so that they feel like they're a marriage and they're not separate things.
Gotcha. How about we listen to another song? So, and I know there's a story behind The Cure.
Yeah.
Which is, tell us the story behind The Cure.
I mean, I've been raised to be a pretty tough cookie. Like my dad is like, he's kind of raised me to be this type of thinker where you're like, you know what, if you don't like shit, you go out there in the world and you put your foot down and you don't let anyone take advantage of you. And, he's kind of given me that mindset my whole life. So like, I've just never taken shit from anybody. And, I'm a tough girl. Like I've been through a lot of things that like, I feel at my age now that I feel like, wow, like I can't believe I've overcome a lot of the hardships I've had. But there's, having that attitude of like, no one's going to pull me down. No one's going to kick me down. I'm just going to keep getting back up, and I'm going to keep, returning with a newfound strength. Like The Cure is kind of like my fight song for 2020. It's like, screw everything, screw all the people in my life who've tore me down to the lowest level, to have pushed me down on my knees, and I've gotten back up every single time. Even when I didn't have faith in myself, because a lot of us go through phases in our life where we are not confident about something, or we just don't feel like we can muster up to everybody else's potential. And even in those moments when I felt like incapable of being my best, I still got up anyway and said, I may not be my best now, but I will be my best at some point, and I have to keep fighting to get there. So that's The Cure.
And that makes a lot of sense. So this is The Cure.
Why you always bringing me down while I push you up? Seems you stopped hanging around. What's your agenda? Took a long ride downtown. Never thought I would say I surrender. Don't push me down. Get back up. I'll come back round. Don't bring me down. I'll prove you wrong. Look at me now. Why you always bringing me down? Man, you're so fucked up. Why you always bringing me down? Poison to my lungs. Don't push me down. Get back up. I'll come back round. Don't bring me down. I'll prove you wrong. Look at me now. No, no, no. Don't push me down. I'll get back up and I'll come back round. Don't bring me down. I'll prove you wrong. Look at me now. Why you always bringing me down while I push you up?
That is The Cure. Another great song. I mean, you've got this album is loaded with great songs. We could play all 10 and you wouldn't be bored. I can promise you that.
Thank you.
And you know what? You don't see that very often these days because there's usually always like a dot or two in there. You know, you always get these references with Annie Lennox and Kate Bush, right? And they're all like a really nice feather in the cap. One thing that tells me is that Europe is like a major market for you.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything over there?
I mean, we're beginning to. So, I mean, right now we're just trying to figure out how to branch into that market. Because I think, you know, even though I have an album out and other songs that have, you know, that have moved around the world a bit, I think this album is this is the album I think that kind of speaks properly on my behalf of just how broad my listenership is, because it really it touches on so many genres, and the production of the album is just it's just at such a phenomenal level, and I'm so proud of, like, you know, my teammates and the work that they've done and how much hard work and time has gone into creating this, that I feel that these songs kind of speak to people of all walks of life. And I'm hoping, you know, it seems like right now we're getting like a pretty good response in Germany. We have a lot of fans there, and as well as London. So I see the difference in the response of where our fan listenership is coming from. So, but we've had fans in Italy and Australia and other countries throughout the last few years. So I think it's just a matter of, you know, more people being aware of our project and what we're doing, and thrusting that out as far as we can.
I think once Europe gets a hold of this, this is really going to go over there. Not that I don't think that it doesn't have major potential here, but I think in Europe, especially, and I don't know what your situation is as far as like management. Are you doing everything yourself, or do you have management and agents and all that type of
we
stuff?
We have some consultants that we look to, but right now we're self-managed and we're doing everything ourselves. But I have a bunch of mentors that I've been working with who have been really helping me guide this ship. So luckily, until that moment when we get the kind of representation that can do justice for what we're working on, I've kind of been holding off because a lot of people have come forward that are just not who they say they are, and I want to make sure I'm putting, this is our hard work, so it's like I want to put it in the hands of somebody who's not going to screw me over,
Funny that you would say that.
Oh, it's never happened in history before.
No. Well, everybody always says exactly what they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
So is that like one of the biggest challenges for you to find like the right representation, or are you just not ready for it, period?
I wouldn't say I'm not ready for it. I just think that like I have my sights set on certain things, and I feel that if I don't find a team member who's aligned with the best thing that we're capable of doing, then I don't feel that then most of the other things I can take care of myself, because up till this point I've done a lot of my own management and PR, and I've worked with a few PR people in the process who've been helpful, but I feel that everything that I've done has gotten a far greater outcome than the money that I've spent and the time that I've beat myself up over this person and that person and them not doing their job properly. And I'm like, there's
nobody that can represent you better than yourself.
Exactly. The problem is having the time to do it, because it's a full-time job to be representation. So
absolutely, but it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
But it's especially, you don't fit really into like a box, right? And even like the Annie Lennox and Kate Bush references, I think they're good, but I don't think you're like Annie Lennox or Kate Bush, quite frankly.
I think people have a hard time finding what category we're in, because we're kind of creating our own category. So it's,
Yes, and that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing. And sometimes people say, well, you need to be able to categorize and these words come out that like dream pop and that may work for one song, but then not for the next.
Exactly.
So I don't, I think the artists that have always stood out and have had longevity, they couldn't be pigeonholed.
I agree. I feel that way about Tom York and Radiohead. I feel like he's one of those iconic artists who, like, no matter how much you try to describe what he does, like, there is no other experience like Radiohead. That's his own experience. And I've searched for other artists where I could get that experience, but I can only get it from him. And so he's created this niche where he's like an experience, not just music anymore. And that's a very powerful place to arrive at as a musician.
For sure. And there are a few others like that out there. But,
I agree.
But even if you and I hate to bring this up, but like even if you look at like somebody like Madonna, what I always liked about her was that I always thought that she was a really strong businesswoman. I've never been a fan of her music. But she's done really different stuff.
Yeah.
And she was always the driving force. And she had, the one thing with her was she had a really, really good business sense and how far to push the envelope.
Yep.
And get people really riled up.
Yes.
And then like take this little step back and then just always be on that edge.
Yeah.
And you'd only hear from her when she had a new album, a movie or a tour or a book. And then she comes out, makes a bunch of noise, and then she disappears.
Yeah, well, she was living her art. I think that what attracted me to, because I have a lot of influences as a young girl. Like growing up, like I thought Madonna was really cool. Like I loved her tunes. I wouldn't say that Madonna was an influence of mine. I definitely say that she's an artist that I admired and appreciated. But I was influenced by a very different genre of music and a different time. I grew up listening to 60s and 70s psychedelic rock. My parents really loved that. So like that was where my influences were. And so for me, like, I grew up in the 90s, so there was just so much content at that time that was so different.
Right.
You had the grunge era here in America, which was like huge, and like Nirvana and Alice in Chains, and you had Metallica, and like everything was just like so rich with variety. And like I had so many, like, I'm a hard rock girl. Like I love metal and hard rock. I grew up listening to that predominantly, that and classical music. So like my background is just, and when it came to singing and stuff, like I tended to gravitate towards like Motown and more soul music as well as pop music, because I found that I liked the techniques that those singers were using to express their lyrics and the melodies. And so it's just interesting. Like, Madonna was definitely one of those artists for me that was like, wow, she knows what she wants. She's out there doing it. She's unapologetic. She's strong and,
Right.
and she's cool as hell. And like,
Yeah.
she's a role model for a woman who, I'm not talking, cause like most people be like, oh no, it's so risque, but like, you know what? Like society has like taught women to be a certain way. And I don't agree with that. I think women they can be outspoken. They can be raunchy. They can be crazy. And like, they shouldn't be judged for that,
But I think it was just it was pure business. That was just a business decision, how can I make the most noise and I
exactly.
remember, like a prayer, and she's getting the
Yeah.
Catholic Church all in,
sexuality is taboo. It's like a woman using their sexuality for art is always been taboo, and it's still in a way kind of taboo, even though it's become more normalized in our music culture. But like she's like, yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, and then, but that's kind of why I mention it, and like I don't think that you're very similar, but I see you as the type of person or the type of artist that can create the niche and then do your own thing, right?
Thank you.
And I think that's very interesting, and that's why when I listen to your stuff, I'm like, oh, I got to talk to this guy, right? That's really what got me interested, right? Because I wanted to see, like, okay, so like how's she doing this, and where is it all coming from, and it's going to be very interesting to see where you take it. But I think you can certainly take it quite far. You have the potential to, which is I think it's exciting, right? And you have you've drawn a lot of press attention. And like your streams are in the hundreds of thousands, so I think you're on the right track. Would you say?
Yeah, it's hard to say in this industry now. It's like my goal right now is not trying to focus too much on the streams and focus more on making really great content, because you can have. You have to. Yeah, because you can have millions of streams, but if the content that you keep continuing to put out doesn't match or get higher than where you were before, then you may not be growing. You might be getting hyper focused on just the numbers and not the actual content, which is what keeps your career going. So for me, learning how to be the best songwriter I can be, learning to be the best musician I can be, is the best gift I could give to myself and my fans, because they're investing money in me, and I respect them beyond words, and I want them to be happy with what I'm giving them. And I also want them to feel like I give a shit, because if I just start worrying about the material shit, like, it always comes through.
Right? It always comes through.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So I have.
But you know what? It's besides the content. Like, I agree. I mean, it's the streams and numbers, and like that's what record companies look at. Right?
I know.
But at the same time, since you are all doing it on your own, and you are drawing a lot of attention. That must give you the confidence to go, like, all right, so let's take it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good to like have people in agreement, like with what you're doing, because like it's always scary as an artist to come out and put yourself vulnerably on the table and say, this is me, this is what I represent, and like either take it or leave it. But it's it does feel good, when you look and you see that people are enjoying the music, or that they feel that you're speaking directly to them. And so I feel very honored that I'm able to make art, and that I can connect with people all over the world and do what makes me happy, and also provide them happiness as well.
Okay. Cool. What's the biggest challenge for you today?
Well, in the music industry, I would just say outreach and finance. Like that's like always the two things that are difficult as an independent, because when you're attached to a label or some large company, like they have the tools to be able to thrust you into the world on their terms. Whereas when you're on your own and you're doing everything yourself, you're self-funding, you're self-directing, you're self-creating, you're doing all the jobs. You're not handing off to like a subcontractor of some sort. So my team and I make everything. We do everything in-house. And, I think maybe to some degree that the fact that we've done that is maybe why we've been able to reach so many people, because people can feel the authenticity of the art that we're making, and that it's
absolutely,
and so, but I would definitely say like finance is always the hardest for artists. Like if we had funding, if we had the proper kind of funding, we could probably do so much. We could hire that fancy marketing company. We could hire this and that, but we have to do everything on our own.
But then again, the moment that you do that, will you be represented the way that you want to be represented, right? That's the next challenge, right?
Yeah, and I think there are companies out there that know what they're doing. I think that they're professionals we can look at everything that's happening out there right now. There's like case studies we can look at where there's companies that are successful and just they've tested it, they do it every day. As long as my content is authentic, then how they get it to people obviously is their professional expertise. So I think I'm just more concerned about the content being real and authentic, so that my fans know that I care and that I'm giving them the experience that they're looking for.
Okay, great. So let's talk about content. So what kind of content are you working on now? Because the album is done. All the graphic, the images, all that's there. So what's next in creating content?
Well, before COVID hit, my content was obviously going to be hyper focused on music videos and also like visual media or that helps support the album. But because we can't really get together in groups anymore, had to postpone any sort of filming. So I've been creating with my team here a lot of content like that, whether it be lyric videos or any sort of live videos that people can listen to the album, and looking for ways to kind of bring maybe a recorded live experience to another platform where people can get to know who we are. We kind of did that with Warm Audio last year, where we went into the studio with them and we created this really awesome version of The Cure. And that was like a really great way for our fans to like get to know us a little bit better and see, how we are in a live setting, not just, behind the screen and behind the iTunes. So I'm always looking for new ways to get closer to my fans, whether it be through a graphic or through a video or some kind of outreach of some sort. So right now I'm working through some things with Apogee and trying to figure out in 2020, it's a very different landscape. Like how can content be valuable to someone right now when we're going through such a difficult time?
It's not easy, is it?
No. And it's not as easy as saying, I'm just going to make this. And it's like, yeah, but like what currency of value does that provide? Is it supporting, is it relevant to what people need right now? And so I kind of want to know, what do we need right now, and how can Apogee best be packaged and served to communicate that need and fulfill that?
Yeah, and if you're just putting stuff out for the sake of putting something
exactly.
out, then,
exactly,
that'll backfire as well.
Yes, and I loved the process of making this album so much that I feel that any content I do release attached to, or any visual content attached to this album, has to ebb and flow from the most purest reason of why this album was created. So luckily I have a couple of people on my team who are helping me with some things, and there'll be some new stuff coming out soon, so I'll keep you posted on that when it's nearing its completion.
Did you do any videoing of the actual process of creating the album?
I wish we could have. The album was made at multiple different times and multiple different movements and places. There was a lot of traveling in between creating the album, between Portland and LA, and also like changeover of a lot of musicians and people that were in my project. It's taken me a little bit of time to to get this album going. Life gets in the way, and I'm moving to a new city is very stressful, and there's so much going on that trying to find out how to survive out here as well as make your new record has been a challenge. And I've been out performing a lot too. That's something I've also been focusing on, is working my live experience, because a lot of the stuff we did live has translated into our record, and the live experience actually helped these songs become the impactful songs that they are in a way. So, yeah.
If you could change one thing about the music industry, what would that be?
Whew, that's also a long-winded response, but I'll see if I can.
No, look, that's what just see what I'm just interested in finding out what everybody thinks about that, because everybody gives me a completely different answer, which is very interesting.
I think the one thing I would change about the music industry right now is the way corporate entities view artists in the workplace. I think that right now we are viewed as I'm not going to say non-valuable, but it's almost like they make us feel guilty for needing a platform in which to give our experience to others. Meanwhile, the whole purpose of their platform is to provide content to others for entertainment and enjoyment. Therefore, we are giving them a product, we are giving them a service, and I think most venues and most platforms don't see that without us, there is no experience. Like, we're out there making the content, we're putting it together, we're investing in our art, and then we walk up to the door and they're like, well, where's all the money you owe us? And it's like, yeah, but we're putting all our money into giving you a way to make money. So I feel like venues and companies of any sort, I feel like they should be investing in artists. I think they should be taking care of the people who are keeping their doors open. And even if it's as simple as, having an in-house team that, promotes the artists that are performing at their venues, or finds a way to bring in, people to their performances that aren't just the fans, but donors, people to help keep art alive, because artists can't take on the responsibility of the financial aspect of a venue keeping its doors open. And I think now that's why we have pay to play, and they've taken advantage of a lot of musicians globally, because, most artists can't pay, $800 to play at a small venue, especially if they're just starting up and they don't have a fan base yet. So the bar scene, and that's where most of the problems that you're describing are really very prevalent. Yeah,
it's a lot of bars are owned by people that don't have a clue.
Yeah,
right? They just and they don't care.
No.
And I've always said, I've yet to meet a promoter that cares about the music.
Yeah.
I think the problem in the bar setting always is that entertainment is like the second thought.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of bars started out, and it's just like, well, we're just gonna, put in a bar and put the fridge, put a sign outside, and people will come.
Yeah.
And then they find out that that isn't so.
No. Yeah.
And then live entertainment became like an afterthought.
Yes.
There are not a lot of bar venues out there like the Whiskey A Go Go and places like that are live venues. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's like.
Well, that's the thing, is whiskey is also pay to play, so artists can't even perform there. And I was speaking directly as not about bars but venues, because a lot of the venues in California, it's all pay to play. It's all door deals. It's all how much money can we suck from the artist until and they might not even have a chance of making it back, or being able to play at all, because they're kind of narrowing the straw of who can play and where and how much ticket sales and it's like, yeah, both parties need to make money, and they need to be a part of the experience. So I understand that whole side of it, but I think that I just think a lot of artists are being taken advantage of right now in more than one ways. You know, you got companies out there saying, hey, pay us for streams, pay us for this, pay us for that. And it's like, no one should ever have to pay for these types of things. Like, this is not something that we should have to pay for. And most beginner artists don't know that. So they're dumping all their money into thinking that streams are going to make their career successful. But there's more parts and mechanical pieces that go into that happening.
For sure. To me, as I've always said, like, in general terms, having an album is like your calling card to get people to come to your shows and buy your merch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're in an area where it's all pay to play, then I think the best thing that you can do is go play somewhere else.
Exactly. And then I have a friend out here. His name's Darius. He's a really great promoter, and he was one of the first people I started working with out here who really believes in artists. He pushes them. He gives them opportunities. Even if they're non-paid, he still gives artists a platform to perform and expose their art to potential fans. And he's been for the artist the whole time. And he's always taken risks for people that I've worked with, or even me. And I think that he sees the value in what artists provide, and that we are a source of, value in this city. And I think that his concept, which he's been doing all along, is that, if we can't get into the venues, if we can't, with nasty corporate entities like Live Nation and Ticketmaster and all these people, if we can't get past the big corporate monopolies, then let's bring our music to the cafes. Let's bring our music to the bookshops. Let's bring our music to an event space. Like, let's get away from the corporate anomaly, and let's find a way to get art moving and music to still be something that's profitable for the artist and not just a way to suck them dry. So
yeah, I mean, you can find your own venues. You create your own venues, and as long as everybody kind of sticks together and does that, and then create a circuit
exactly
like that themselves, then that can certainly work.
Yeah,
because I think the general public, the ticket buying public, they don't have a clue anyway, and they're just like, oh well, I'm supporting the artist. They
don't care where they go. They don't care if it's outside or if it's inside or if it's at a shop or not. They just want to see the art. That's why they're going.
Yeah, and especially once this virus is done, they'll go anyway.
Even their front lawn, they'll be happy on the front lawn. Even
that's right. Yeah, for sure. Let's do some backyard parties or something.
Exactly. That's actually a big thing here in LA. There's like a lot of people doing lawn concerts and lawn parties, and they.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's a huge underground thing here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's one way to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. What is your fondest memory of you have about working in the industry?
Oh wow. Well, there was a time when I was still living on the East Coast, and I started working with this producer in Atlanta. His name's Spencer Garn, and this was like around the time when I was first getting started, and I had a lot to say. I think I was like exploring myself musically and trying to figure out my sound and like what I had to offer, and I ended up flying out to his studio in Atlanta to work with him. And actually, I probably would have never even connected with him had I not emailed him like a year prior and just introducing myself and telling him that I really liked his work. And he ended up thinking about me, and he's like, you know what, we should work on a project together sometime. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I had the perfect 2 songs for him. I was like, these songs are like right up his alley. I think he's really going to know how to produce them, and he's going to bring them to the place that I really want them to be. And so I went out there and we put a whole team together. We got musicians, we got everybody in the studio. We had a blast, and we were just making the tunes and right there on the spot. And, everything was written, but like the energy that the musicians brought to the room, and they had such great experience. One of the drummer, Mike Phillips, he plays for Janelle Monáe, and he just comes in there like a complete professional, and we're still friends. We actually bumped into each other at NAMM this year, which was pretty awesome. And, I haven't seen him since 2016, which is when we tracked that EP. And so I think that was one of my fondest memories in music, is as a new budding artist, being able to put a bunch of musicians together with my producer at the time and in a room and have that live synergy of people playing my music. And I'll never forget that time, and it was really magical.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Who's the person you met while working in the industry that had the greatest impact on you? Why?
Well, I would definitely say Tim Jansen's.
I kind of knew that was coming.
Tim has opened my mind, my eyes. He's also one of the most amicable people you could work with ever. He's all about the art. It's not about self. It's not about the ego. And when I'm around him, I know that whatever choices he's making are to serve the music. And I try to surround myself with people like that. I want to work with people who care about the art and not about the self, because egos are not something you want to bring into the recording room or the writing room.
No, you're right.
So, luckily from the beginning, we've just see eye to eye. He knows what I want before I say it. He can read my mind. And so if I have a partner who's already that intuitive and has a world of a great experience to back it up, I want to work with that person.
Great. Fantastic.
So,
I have one final question for you.
Cool.
What's the dream gig?
Well, originally it was MSG, but now I was thinking I would love to perform in Sydney at the concert hall there. I feel like that's it's like such an elegant, beautiful performance venue that I think at this point I just want to have an orchestra on stage playing incantation in the back and having that grandiosity of my voice kind of carrying out over an ocean or something that is connected. Like nature is a huge part of my writing, so if I could perform in a venue that is expansive and allows my voice to carry on and through a mountain or an ocean, I think that would be a beautiful extension of what I have to say.
I think that would be a great fit.
Thanks.
So it's not a bad choice at all.
Thank you.
Whitney, very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
I am all over the internet. So the easiest place to start is just whitneytaimusic.com. I have direct links to all my platforms from the homepage. So you'll be able to, right when you click that link, you'll see all the little widgets that you can click on to get to my platforms. I'm on Instagram at Whitney Tai and Twitter at Whitney Tai, but you can find all that on whitneytaimusic.com.
Great. Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to close out with one more song, and I think we're going to go with Starfish, right?
Yes.
What's the story, Starfish?
Well, it's funny. I notice that my default as a writer is to write about love, and I think that's every songwriter. It's like love is just such a huge part of our subject matter. And when I heard the music, Tim gave me a demo. He'd come up with this really, really cool drum beat and these beautiful chords, and I listened to it and I said, wow, this makes me feel like I want to kind of figure out a problem or figure a solution to a problem. And what ended up happening in Starfish was the concept behind that was that the song is about free will. It's about, no matter how much you try to move the world in the way you want it to go, it's always going to go where it wants to go anyway. So why fight that, and why not just surrender into this place of trusting the nature of the universe? You can't control it. So, which also plays into the album Apogee. The concept in general is just this succession of realizations that free will is only good up to a certain point, and at some point you have to still let go and let the universe do what it must. So, I guess Starfish, in short, I would say, at the end of it all, when everything fades away, we're all just, beautiful starfish, waiting together in harmonious connection with one another.
Well, on that note, let's listen to Starfish. Get out there, get Apogee. It's on all the platforms. And once again, Whitney, thank you very much, and best of luck in your career.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's a real pleasure.
I guess I like the twisted plot we've created. I sacrifice it so you and I can make it. I wrote the script so that we both could lay naked, like two starfish on a planet that's just been invaded. Inhale real slow, the air out here could be fake. Blue lips, stiff hearts, don't sleep, not sure if we're safe yet. The sky could swallow us, but you couldn't care less. I'm here at the drive-in, watching just how it all ends. It's safe to say our fate can't be generated. With pen in hand, you scribbled out something sacred, starving for something more than just surface data. Messed up on love, edited right down to the pavement. I guess I like the twisted plot we've created. I sacrifice it so you and I can make it. I wrote the script so that we both could lay naked, like two starfish on a planet that's just been invaded. Inhale real slow, the air out here could be fake. Blue lips, still thoughts, don't sleep, not sure if we're safe yet. The sky could swallow us, but you couldn't care less. I'm here at the drive-in, watching just how it all ends. It's safe to say our fate can't be generated. With pen in hand, you scribbled out something sacred, starving for something more than just surface data. Messed up on love, edited right down to the pavement. I guess I like the twisted plot we've created. I sacrifice it so you and I can make it. I